Welcome to Indigenous Languages Action Forum Conversations. My name is Isibheqe Indigenous. We promote the use and development of Indigenous languages. Enjoy today's conversations. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much to Pule for organizing this for us. You guys are interesting. I see that we even have a jury designer here in our midst. So welcome to Indigenous Languages Action Forum Conversations. My name is Isibheqe Indigenous, and we just want to jump right in to you, Mr. Serokolwana, who is from UNISA. And I see now you've blurred your background for us.
Yeah, I wanted to keep the background clean. Yeah, as I was saying, Napjadi Letsoalo. I work at UNISA. I'm a linguist. I'm a language professional. I'm involved in some language projects, and my interest is in youth languages.
Youth languages?
Yeah, promotion of the previously marginalized indigenous languages. The Kebulela Spady. Yeah, I come from Limpopo. Thank you.
Welcome, welcome, Sabulela. Msakha, could you join us?
Yes, sanibonani, that is correct. Igama ngumsakha kamona kamashashane lwashaya inyoka ayibeka endleleni nasabanye batandula bayidobhe washaya imbutho bophela emhlangeni bakakha bathuma tutane balabanye bathume kutsini. That's the summary of the summary. But the summary is Msakha Mona.
I love it.
I'm currently based lana in a university under some mountain called UCT. I'm stationed in a department called the Language Development Group. Don't ask me what that is. I also curate or direct. I don't know what I do, but in what we call the Kulani Arts Project, that has that mini arts festival inside the cave in Sudwala. Yeah, I think that's about it for manje, ne? Thanks.
Thank you. Pule. And if you could also introduce the topic and then go right in, because there's a few of us here, so I'd really like you to set the tone for the conversation. And the rules for this is please jump in and have, it's about just having this dialogue about, you know, this conversation. I'm also curious why we have a jury designer in a language discussion. Go for it, Pule.
University yaseKapa futhi, but I work currently at the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture in the National Language Service. And the topic for today that we've sort of agreed upon is that is the ingenuity of writing, or the ingenuity, technology, art of symbolic mark making, symbolic crafting. So the people that I invited to me today are all people who have worked with Isibheqe Indigenous, also known as the Mthethwa, which is the indigenous writing system from this region of Southern Africa that is used for representing all language in the region equally under one system, which is derived from the indigenous arts such as Timatsawa Soto or Umkwalo Isibhele or Amabheka Esizulu, for example, which are all types of symbolic arts that we have, whether it be mural arts, basketry and beadwork, or whether it be pottery, or whether it be any type of symbolic inscription that has a very old tradition that is sometimes rarefied and made to be esoteric and is also kept in certain knowledge systems that are not necessarily shared widely. And Isibheqe was a project with a website called isibheqe.org.za. And this is an advocacy project for African writing systems in general that are of indigenous or indigenous source, and also for the local writing system of Isibheqe. So everybody that's joining today, although only in 7 minutes we're going to find Mthethwa from the University of Johannesburg, Faculty of Art and Design, jewelry designer, award-winning jewelry designer and teacher of jewelry design there, because in her program she has introduced Isibheqe Indigenous writing system as a system for students to engage with and create jewelry out of. And this is a program that has been going for 2 years now. Then,
so tell us, how did the Isibheqe, how did it start? You know, is it like, who actually started it, and how do we know this?
Isibheqe is based on what we call impawu zesintu, which is just traditional symbols. So traditional symbols in Southern Africa, they're old, and they're knowledge that is been kept over history by dingaka, mostly. That's rarefied knowledge kept by experts in traditional field of knowledge, which are often sometimes called healers or diviners and these kind of things. Of all types and sorts. And
so it comes from a microphone. So are you saying it comes mostly from a microphone?
It's a knowledge system that was originally kept in those quarters of traditional knowledge.
So but they also, wrote in Isibheqe.
Well,
Isibheqe
is the expansion of the traditional symbols into a phonetic system of writing. Now, the reason why we've also got Dr. Letsoalo here today is because Dr. Letsoalo is the head of linguistics and modern languages, I think is the name of the department at UNISA, can correct me. And there is a course in this writing system, Isibheqe, that has been incorporated into the phonetics first year syllabus, because the writing system is essentially an expansion of the traditional symbols into a full codified phonetic system of writing for all language of the region. And so it's a very useful system for expressing Islimis the scene, to let me say, so in one.
All right. Can we hear from Dr. Letsoalo?
Thank you very much. To take from where Pule was, we speak of indigenous knowledge system and how to incorporate indigenous knowledge system into the curricula. So working in this project, what we wanted to do was to check how do we incorporate indigenous knowledge system in the studies of linguistics. And because at the moment we are using what we call an alphabetic writing system, we wanted to introduce at the basic level a type of a writing system that can come in and reintroduce the traditional way of writing or the traditional way of knowing into our curriculum. And you would know that when we talk about a writing system, we're talking about a set of convention that we use to represent the units of spoken language into a writing form. So there's a module that we have here at UNISA, which is called Grammatical Patterns and Principles. And when we wanted to review the module and find a way of integrating indigenous knowledge, transformation of the language space into academia, one of the questions that was asked was, how do we do that? And that's when we thought, if in the writing system section, we can then introduce the DTMA writing system and teach students on how to present the different languages that they speak into this uniform way of writing, that would really assist.
Thank you, Dr. Letsoalo. Is this course meant for first-year students or linguistics, people who are enrolled in linguistics, or can anybody register just for that course?
Yeah, so it's a module. It's not particularly a course. It's a module for first-year students, but the way UNISA.
Anybody can register for a course.
Yeah, you can register a module as an elective, whether you're at the third level or at the second level, even if it's a first-year module. So what we did, which is interesting, is that we then made this section of the module open. So we made an open educational resource and made it available through our institutional repository, so that even if people don't want to register formally for the module, but they then have access to this open educational resource. So anyone who is interested in knowing on how we have integrated the demarcating system in our modules, then they can get access to the open educational resource.
All right, thank you so much for sharing that link. So Msakha, please take the floor. How do you come into this conversation of Isibheqe and African knowledge writing system? Because now we have, Pule was telling us, you know, that the history of it comes from the way that indigenous healers, like kaJanolintji used to write. And for me, I mean, I have other questions about that. You know, is it then considered like sacred writing that's meant only for the called, and how do they feel about that? But we're not going to get into that for now.
Okay.
But I would like to know, as an artist, and I'd also like Khanya to come in, because I believe, you know, with the jewelry design, I'd like to know, how do you come in as artists into this conversation of Isibheqe and the African knowledge systems, and how does it advance? How do you feel that it advances the cause of indigenous knowledge through how you work with it?
Okay. No, I know the question is clear. It already has a lot of answers in it. So I came across this work when Pule presented to us at UCT around 20, I can't remember, 16 or 17. A lot was going on the campuses around that time. Things were falling. But I was co-teaching in a course called
Polish movement.
Yes. So the course I was teaching at the time was called Texts in Humanities. So we're dealing with texts, ways of making meaning. And obviously the overarching argument being text is not only that which is written, even in writing. So you cannot reduce all of how we make meaning to writing. So, and then Pule happens to have been pushing this work. So we invited him to come and then co-teach actually in this course. And now here's where, for me, the system helps us push decoloniality. An overarching argument in my teaching has been to say our history does not start when Europeans arrive. So, which a lot of us could agree with that. And our technologies don't start there. But there's often the question of, so where do we go to find out all of this? So it was an opportune time when Pule came to say, but wait, here is traces of what was there that we could still put together. So fast forward now, we are noticing more and more about when we speak about Isibheqe, a lot of, I would say, Anglo-normativity in Southern Africa seems to be undermined. We take lightly that there's certain sounds that you almost cannot write in the 26 alphabets. So, because I teach mostly Black students, because I teach on programs that are funded by DHED for redress purposes. One of the reasons that students are failing is the English, and not just English, but academic English. So writing in a certain style of English. So I then develop an interest to think, what could things have looked like if we're able to write our languages or our sounds using technology that is sincere to how we would actually produce meaning. So obviously Isibheqe comes in handy there, because I don't have Pule's sort of framework to explain it, but in my head, it makes sense. And I always remember the example that he uses of the sound mo, because I used to also play that drum. My gogo actually was a traditional healer. So I remember that drum that you play using the water. So for me, it sort of makes sense that the symbols are actually linked to real
What do you call them?
practices.
I'm interested, because you speak Zulu, right?
Hey,
No.
about over 8 languages or so. So I don't necessarily have one particular
Oh, you
language.
don't?
NesiZulu, because I
So you,
did learn isiZulu esikoleni.
oh, okay. So you don't have, like, your family language. What's your family language, or your family speaks several?
I don't have, yeah. I mean, ekhaya lami bakhuluma Swati. Kokwane, who was inyanga kuri Mtsonga, and she's the one who introduced me to that drum. but at
Oh,
school I
wow.
never did
What
any
do
of
you
these
call it?
languages.
What did she call that drum?
Unfortunately, I forgot. It's not coming to mind. I forgot. But I will share as soon as I remember. If I find out later, I forgot. But I've gathered.
Because I've heard of that. I was just curious to hear what you call it, because in the Eastern Cape, there are regions that use that drum, or that traditionally used to use it. So I wanted to know what you call it. But I don't want to break your conversation on Isibheqe and the traditional knowledge of writing and
it's
adding the
fine.
academic element.
It's fine. In fact, the fact that I forgot for me adds into the rationale, but these are things that some of us took for granted. You know, we never got really the opportunity to link our practice with our meaning making processes. The schooling system told us that to make meaning, you need to be Eurocentric. And obviously, the European alphabet perpetuates that a lot to the devaluation of our own ways of knowing. So my decolonial interest entailed that I could actually look at Isibheqe as a way of reclaiming some of the ways through which we used to produce meanings, but that are not detached from our daily realities. And I know that our daily realities shift, but actually in Southern Africa, people still exist who are balapayo, who produce meaning outside of the Eurocentric linear order of meaning, where if we are pala, you start from left to right. You know, we still exist. Siyaphupha. We do certain sounds that tell a lot that you cannot even reduce to script. Now, in the art space where I also work, funny enough, it's easy to present something if people could buy into some idea of it being artistic or entertainment. Then you sneak in your agenda that actually we are not entertaining and we are not, you know, I just somehow find it is even with students, because people just want to get their degrees and leave shame and get employed. So Isibheqe presents this opportunity where you could write, right? You could put together meaning, but you can also beautify. I mean, the artist here might probably speak better to that. I found that when I go and give a presentation and I write my name, Msakha, then people are like, okay, that's beautiful. What is it? As opposed to me saying, let's talk about ways of creating meaning that are sort of academia. Now it's serious. But I found that the way, at least the way in which Pule presented it to me, man, attractive, and it tells in its own the story. We are not necessarily, just because it's not European, it does not make it boring. We are actually creative in the process of making meaning. And I don't know if we have the time to go into all of the, the philosophy of knowing, which is tied to our philosophy of being. But roughly, this is me and my relationship with Isibheqe, which I'm still really trying to learn and I'm very behind. But for now, that's roughly where I think I sort of come in.
Thank you so much. That was very informative, especially in connecting it with even academic writing and really how people relate to that, because that's also another language, academic writing. So I really appreciate that. Khanya,
sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing, which I always sometimes say to Pluti. He usually writes things for me in a spec when I need to be sure and I have a presentation. And it has made me come to terms with the fact that there's a lot of who we are that we've not embraced. The faculty, I need a Pule to come through and ever. It shows how outside of how on the periphery our ways of doing and of knowing. But at the same time, it has made me embrace the whole thing of, if we are to do this decolonial work, we actually need to learn to collaborate. It's not something that one person can take up and run with. Thanks.
Thank you. In some ways, it's a way of remembering, and so when you remember, it's remembering in a collective, it's not in isolation. And that's how, that's why storytelling traditionally is so important. And that's why transference of language, intergenerational, it's not something that's done a silo, which is why I think probably academic writing is maybe problematic in that sense, because you have to do it as an individual versus a culture of collective knowledge, collective sharing of how we do anything in life. It is in community and needing different perspectives. But I really want to hear, Khanya, Please come in, introduce yourself. You would have missed the introduction. I'm Isibheqe Indigenous, and I am working for Indigenous Languages Action Forum, and we promote anything Indigenous languages, especially in South Africa. We want our languages to develop, and I believe that you're an award-winning star jury designer. And I want to know why you are doing Isibheqe and how it affects your life.
Greetings to everyone. I'm glad that I'm part of this forum. And I think I'll start off by saying how I was introduced to Pule. Pule was introduced to the department by Dr. Shashi Cook, who's now left the department to go to Nelson Mandela. But she was the person who was doing the module of contextual studies, which is basically the history of art in the jewelry department here at the University of Johannesburg. And it was part of the theme of decolonization. So that's how Pule got introduced to us. And Shashi was leaving, and she's like, Khanya, there's Pule who does, indigenous writing systems, and it's called Isibheqe, and I'd like to introduce him, and maybe you see if there's any potential of working together with regards to design. And then because I'm also interested in the whole decolonial conversation, I found it interesting because it was a way that as designers, we could communicate, who we are as Indigenous people. And it also, in a way, the way I look at Isibheqe is that looking at South Africa and how diverse we've become, it also kind of puts everyone under one umbrella where you don't get to say, oh no, but this is Tswana. Oh no, this is, this is Sotho, this is Zulu. But to my students, I say, this is very diverse. It allows you to express yourself and find ways of writing and becoming one thing under this Isibheqe. And usually the theme for that I give is that they need to either use their clan names, their surnames, and then they need to spell that out. And then after they've spelled that out, then they start making patterns from that to create jewelry that is wearable. And it's been so interesting because for our end of year exhibition, those are all the pieces that people are always interested in. And like Msakha was saying, people look at the work and they're like, oh, that is beautiful. That's exactly what we get as well, where people are just fascinated by, oh, what is this? What does it say? And then we'll say, okay, this is what it says. This was the students' work, and this is their clan name. And people still buy it anyway. They just like, but it looks beautiful, and I want to wear it. So I find that it's very important work, especially like I'll add to what Msakha was also speaking about in terms of us remembering our ways of being, our knowledge, and how our knowledge has, become lost, and us coming and really embracing Isibheqe kind of gives us a way to look at who are we and how do we express ourselves, how do we make meaning, how do we give voice to our people in our way, and how do we make that relatable to the next generation, to the new generation, and I think Isibheqe has a nice way of doing that because it's very fun, but at the same time it carries a message and it's meaningful. And I think in a very academic space, this is a necessary thing because we're still struggling with decolonizing. And I think it shouldn't just be lip service. It should be an active thing that we do as lecturers in the space. And how we do that should be that we include that in the curriculum, where we let students understand what is it to decolonize and how do I become an activist and how do I use design to become an activist, so yeah, that's just like to sum up.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the art element, but I do want to say, just to challenge all of you, the word decolonizing for me, I do find that I find it a bit problematic because I feel like it focuses, but that's like another conversation. It's not for this, because for me, I feel like it focuses on the colonial system versus allowing us to focus on the African system. So I kind of feel like, anyway, but what I like about this Isibheqe is that I feel like it's so authentic in the way that it connects, even the fact that it's connected to, the spiritual, like Sangomas, as Pule mentioned earlier, it kind of encompasses art and spirituality and really the way that people live, which is like a wholesome kind of way of communicating. It's color, its shapes, it connects to, you know, if you look at how we make our beads. So I'm so interested in what would happen. I feel like it's such an opportunity because I find that our indigenous languages, that every single variety matters, because there's something in each variety that allows for an expression that allows for new creativity, you know. And then Isibheqe comes and it allows all of those languages to be able to express themselves in creativity. And for me, our languages are colorful. They are, and the just the beauty of the visualization of that Isibheqe allows. I'm so excited, and I really hope that this goes more and more. And hey, maybe Pule would be nice to me, and maybe we can do some things. Because I'm thinking, hey, maybe there could be like visual books, you know, where you can actually go to a museum and see actual books, you know, where art and language meet in an actual physical space. But
say on that note, there has been some things published in the writing system. A lot of books have featured it as like part of, like, say, fiction stories have featured it as part of the story. And also in terms of book publishing design, people have used it in a design sense for headings and things like that. But also there was a newspaper at UCT called Vernac News that I don't know if it's still being published, but at the time they did publish a full article written by Mthethwa Ndaba, which was written in Mthethwa Sohlam. So there has been some of that done. It's, you know, and I would really love to see more of that. So the more books that we have, the better. You know, there are people producing things at the moment, but until we get it in Unicode and until we get the technologies, digital technologies, to be able to represent it digitally easily, then, you know, that those things are going to be slower. But there are some projects. We've approached Cellular to also get involved in maybe creating digital resources for the script, also in collaboration with Dr. Letsoalo.
Thank you so much. That is so exciting. So I'm going to land our conversation, and hopefully next year we'll have you back, you know, where we can go in deeper into the various work. We'd really love to share your work as well. So I'm going to ask if maybe in the WhatsApp, if you could, you know, like, for example, I'd love to see, like, what does the jury look like, you know, for people to be able to go in there and have a look. And Msakha, anything that you would like to show us for people to be able to engage with, and the UNISA doctor, you know, because I'd like to post this so that people can engage with this work, because I love the diversity of what is being done in this or using Isibheqe, which is really how we work. You know, when we write, we really write across genres, you know. So this is really beautiful. So, Msakha, I think you want to speak. Could you please unmute?
Yes, thank you. This is for next time, as you said, because I see, yeah, which is exciting for me. So I think next time, maybe let's try and share some thoughts around our sort of different takes on decoloniality. I say this because for language, it's very important. You might find, for example, if you're insisting that someone must use an official language, you are actually asking them to use a very colonial, Christocentric language. So it's almost impossible to think of language justice and not have that attached to the decolonial agenda, because the way in which a lot of our languages are configured, especially the standardized sort of official ones. I mean, coloniality has a lot to do with that. Sepedi, for example, German orthography, Xitsonga, Swiss orthography. So in a way, to think of language justice outside of decolonization is a bit angas, but can I maybe challenge us to have that on that agenda for the next time? Is that fine?
Language and decoloniality. I think, I mean, it's not that I don't understand you know, that how we write comes from colonial times. But I think for me, it's about our psyche when we're approaching it as decolonize. It just sounds like a lot of work to decolonize, versus, hey, I'm reconnecting with what's already been and what's already always been as an and what's been African, and I'm allowing it to just grow like the vegetables. I don't have to decolonize the vegetables. They can just grow in the soil. But I think it's just like an ideology and just sentiments and
I
not
hear you. Maybe
giving
it's because for
colonialism
us,
too much prominence.
maybe it's because for us in the academy, we constantly have to remember to name and point at the problem. Otherwise, it's difficult to deal with the problem if we don't constantly name it and sort of point it in the
Maybe
spaces
that's what
where we are
also needs to
working.
be decolonized. I'm joking. Let's land the conversation.
Sure.
But it is my fault, I did digress into that. I shouldn't have. Khanya, I think Khanya is saying something here.
Yeah, so I was just saying that, based on what you've just said, maybe you are saying how we should maybe look at how we celebrate Ubuntu and, remember ukuthi sobani, but through a writing system. So in that way, it's not necessarily saying ukuthi there's no decolonial agenda that needs to be looked at, but just kind of refocusing and saying, yes, we understand that it's there, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But for this space and for what we are looking at, we'd like to just celebrate who we are and do that whole thing of remembering without necessarily fully tapping into the politics that are there. But you can't as well forget the politics, like Msakha saying those, because if you think about decoloniality, there's coloniality of knowledge, there's coloniality of being and of power, and all of those things come back to, how we understand things. They come back to language, they come back, they influence all of the things that we are about right now in this space and this time. So, but I hear you, I hear what you're saying in a sense of saying, we maybe should also just look at, how do we celebrate Ubuntu through a writing system? Maybe that should be the angle, because then it's just more of a celebration of saying, this is who we are.
Yes, that's really the essence. Thank you. It's really about what is at the center. What are we centering? I think but I can't explain it here right now. But that's really the best way to kind of frame. And of course, you can't say, the history didn't happen. We're here because of it, so it's not about denying that, because you have to confront it literally every second. So I'm absolutely not disagreeing with you, Msakha. I get it. I just don't want it to be everything about how we approach our lives. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you for being here and sharing your knowledge. It's so powerful, and I really want to hear everything. Oh, Dr. Letsoalo, you have a few more words, Pule says. Dr. Letsoalo?
Oh, all right, thank you. All right, yeah. So I just wanted to say that from the linguistic point of view, the importance of Ditematsha Dinoko, and we have explained it in the OER that we have written, where we say that Dinoko means syllable. So the Ditematsha Dinoko, it's a syllable writing system. And if you check how successful one of the syllable writing system has been, the one from the Japanese writing system, you can see how you are able to unite all what we say, the 11 official languages under one writing system. You can represent all these languages under one writing system. And we speak of a writing system because the importance of the writing system is that it preserves the knowledge of a people. And if we want to unite people irrespective of the language that they speak, you were asking Msakha Uguti, which language does he speak? And he was saying there is Swati, there is Xitsonga, and you find this amongst many Black people that they cannot confine themselves to one language. So that's where this particular writing system comes in, so that we are able to also show cultural expression, but also to, in a way, standardize a way of writing across different languages. Thank you.